Welcome to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, the podcast about living your life in the everyday faith. And I just lost my hearing bud. That was pretty funny. Hold on a second. How funny. So I can tell you that we're going to be talking about something super important that somebody doesn't want people to know about because we've had technical difficulties. We just had my earbud just launch itself out of my ear. I know that we're doing good things when I have obstacles to overcome, but God is always triumphant. And I had a good friend, Father Roger Landry, that used to say, if the devil can't get to your heart, he will mess with your technology. But you know what? We've sprinkled holy water and we are good to go. My guest today is a very dear and longtime friend. I'm not going to say old friend, longtime friend, Susan Tassone. Susan is known as the Purgatory Lady from, it was Father Mitch Pacwa, correct? That gave you that name?
It was actually Father Anthony Mary. He started this whole thing.
I knew it was from EWTN.
Yeah.
Susan writes amazing books on purgatory, the holy souls in purgatory. And before we talk about her new book, I just have to show everybody, I don't think I've ever shared this before. So many years ago, 2015, I'm pretty sure, I received a free copy to talk about day by day for the Holy Souls in Purgatory 365-day devotional from our Sunday visitor. Well, Susan, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but I decided that I would use this book to write the names of people who have passed away. And
Beautiful. Yeah.
every day I pray the prayers that you've written, which are beautiful, and
See
I
'em.
pray for all of these souls. And I have been doing this now for what are we talking, 8 years?
Wow.
And it's this book is filled with names, and I wrote them in pencil because sometimes I have to erase and write them smaller to get more and more names onto this beautiful book. So if anybody's looking for a beautiful daily devotional that includes the devotion of praying for the holy souls, that I have so many testaments to their help back to me. I'm going to highly recommend Day by Day and all of the beautiful books that Susan has written about purgatory. But we're not going to talk about adult books today. We've covered those before, and you can find those online. Today, we're going to talk about Susan's newest project, a labor of love, many years in production. Her new children's book, I'm going to hide myself for a second. New Friends, Now and Forever, a story about the holy souls, Susan Tassone, published by Most High Publishing. Susan, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about purgatory today.
Hello, Allison. Purgatory Regional Office. It's been a long time. You've asked me for 3 years to come on, and I asked you if you'd be patient and delay because I was trying to get this book published. And as you said, the resistance, the troubles. I, I could write a book on that because you know why we're reaching the children, and that's what he doesn't like. And so you were patiently waiting for 3 years, and I can say finally your godchild has arrived, Allison.
So for those who don't, maybe I've not mentioned this before, but again, she's known as Susan Tassone is known as the Purgatory Lady, and I reached out to her many years ago, and she's dubbed me Purgatory Lady Junior. Because I have this great devotion to the Holy Souls I share with everybody every November from November 1st to the 8th. I go visit cemeteries. I pray for Holy Souls every day. It's one of the greatest missions that the Lord has given us. And I thank Susan for introducing me to it. So Susan, your new book, I just have to say, the illustrations are remarkable. The story and the way that you introduce this kind of difficult topic for children, death, dying, heaven, purgatory. This is all very difficult things to talk about as adults, never mind as children. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about the genesis of this book.
Well, as you know, I wanted to do this for several years, and um, other books came, before me that I had to respond to. So we did 9 purgatory books, and then Faustina ended up, and you're in a couple of them, I believe. You're in an adoration book. You're incredible relationship with Faustina is in there. You're an adorer. That's in my adoration book as well. And so, then COVID hit, and then I ended up doing a book about Faustina and how she handled suffering.
Yeah.
So then after COVID, there was a pocket of time that opened up and I jumped in. I wanted to do this for so long because, look, we have 9 books on purgatory now to take the future generation. We've got the doctrine, we've got it all explained. That will take them into the next decades to come. We've got actually, and I'm sure you know about this, there's a book by, do you know Teresa Linden?
Yes.
Do you know her? Yeah, she wrote a book called Tortured Soul, Allison, and she asked me to read it and endorse it. Well, when I was doing Day by Day, I would take a break and read it. It was fantastic. It's a great novel about a mystic who saw purgatory, and she puts it into this incredible page turner. So I highly recommend it. So we've got that. We've got purgatory. Then there's a movie that you can get online, Allison, that I was involved in. Purgatory, The Forgotten Church. It's fantastic. It's one of the best ever done. And I could send you the link because I found it online, which is so surprising. So we have all these things, but Allison, where were the books for the children? There were we had to reach the children. And we needed something creative. We needed something warm. We needed something loving. We needed something that wasn't scary. And that was my goal, was to come up with something like that. So you have a great question, Allison. How do you relay a doctrine so difficult and scary, which is scary for children and us? Well, guess what Jesus did? And you're a great scripture reader, Allison, which is everyone should read scripture because it's the word of God and it does give you light. So what does he do in scripture? What does Jesus do, Allison? He tells stories, and you're very good at it. And so that's how I approached it. I didn't do this hardcore catechism and sin and evil. The children are not going to absorb that. They absorb stories. So we told a story about the holy souls. If you noticed, I didn't say purgatory, the holy souls, because they're people. They're their aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, and people that were in their lives, all our lives. So that was how I approached it.
And I love just going to share a little bit of the setup of the book. My previous career, I was a preschool teacher and a daycare provider. And so I know that I used picture books with my students all the time. And I encourage parents to use picture books with their children all the time because they are the door to conversation. They're a door to the child's soul. If we figure out what children are thinking as we leaf through a book, they can see that when they're reacting to pictures and to story, you find out what's going on in your child's heart and mind. And I also tell people that picture books can have a bookmark put in them. I remember I used to be a teacher, supervisor, and I remember observing one of my young students, and the kids were asking questions. They were trying to interrupt her, and she kept shushing them and saying, "Wait till we get to the end of the book." And when she finished, I pulled her aside and I said, "I love that you feel so drawn to finishing this book, and it is a wonderful story, but those are the moments where you put a bookmark in the book, you put the book down for a minute, and you engage, because story is meant, and this is what Jesus was so good at, it's meant to engage us. It's meant to make us think. It's meant to make us discuss. And as you're going through this book, you have so much for people to look at and talk to. Every age, you can do that. The seek and find at the end of the book, where kids who are little and maybe this is way over their head at this point, they can still engage with the story and be introduced to the story. You have a page at the beginning for grown-ups, which is very important, I think, to help grown-ups know like how to use this book, what's in here, which as a teacher and as a parent, I think that is fabulous, that we give them that background, we give them that direction. And at the end of the book, and the pages, by the way, they're just glossy and sturdy, and I can see just turning them for years and years to come. You have information, a do you know page, and then, as I said, a wonderful, fun seek and find page with some prayers. One of my favorite prayers that you tell throughout the book, the Eternal Rest, the Requiem prayer. You have so many great things to share in here. Can you tell us a little bit about why you thought it was important to include all these fabulous elements?
Sure. It's those are devotions. Those are symbols of our faith, and we know them, Allison. When we're at church, we see the tabernacle, we see palms, we see the Epiphany blessing over the door of our homes, we see candles, we see the vestments with the symbols on the vestments. So we have all these symbols, and the devotional prayer, the eternal rest prayer, which is the official prayer of the church for the dead. And
Mm,
I thought, we see them, but do we know we have the pelican feeding the chicks on the priest vestments? And it really was at the end of the book. I went, there's so many symbols. My sister taught first grade for 40 years, and she was telling me about seek and find. And I went, oh my gosh, we've got so many symbols and devotions. We have to put that in there in order so we could explain it. We see it,
yes,
but do we really know what the holy water does? Do we really know what that the symbols on the vestments that point to the Eucharist are? Do we know what blessed palms are? So we have a seek and find page with the definitions, and then the interactive activity, Allison, that we put the page. So we put the page numbers on the in the book, and you go back to those pages in the child finds those things. They look for the palm, they look for the holy water font, they look for the
fun.
vestment, they look for the tabernacle. So the parent is learning and understanding the devotions and symbols of our faith, and as the children is learning as well. And you pointed out something really important, Allison. This is my first children's book, probably my last one. Lord have mercy, But I saw in children's books, and you're probably better at pointing these out, is that I saw these I would, I'd be working on the book, I'd go to mass, go downstairs into the gift shop, and I'd look at all these books, and some of them had these characters popping up in and out. And I'm like, and you probably could name some of them. My sister could rattle them off. I'm like, I don't know. But I saw them and I thought, I like those. How am I going to do that with a children's book?
Yeah,
And of course, prayer, sitting before the Blessed Sacrament, reading. Allison, you do all that stuff.
everyone
I
should. Everyone should.
Yes, it's you want light, you want the answers, pray. And so
Right.
the eternal rest prayer, Kate, I went, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm gonna weave the eternal rest prayer in and out of the book,
Love it.
so and it place it strategically. So by the end of the story, they will know the eternal rest prayer, and it's a partial indulgence. You pray that prayer, it's a partial indulgence, and it does indeed help the souls in purgatory.
And I was just kind of put a note right there with the indulgence. I had this epiphany the other day, Susan. I was thinking about indulgences, which is, without going too far off into the weeds with that right now, but it's a forgiveness of the temporal punishment from sin. We go to reconciliation, we do our confession, we're forgiven. But it's like if you borrowed my car and you smashed it up, you're very sorry, I forgive you, but there's still a matter of a smashed car that needs to be taken care of. That's what I consider temporal punishment. That's the Allison
Correct.
explanation of it. And so the Lord is so generous that he gives us this way of becoming our insurance company and just taking on the entire debt himself. And to get a full indulgence, and there's many different ways of getting these, and you can Google them, everybody. There's many different ways of getting them, but getting a full or plenary and a complete indulgence is difficult because there's this little caveat that you have to be detached from sin. And I try, but this is what my aha moment was the other day, is that God is generous in his generosity because he gives us what's known as a partial indulgence. So he gives us this opportunity to be completely wiped of the temporal, but he knows that we're human, and he knows that some of us aren't going to be able to completely do what we're asked to do for the plenary, for the complete. So in his generosity, he also allows us a partial. So I don't know about you, but I just keep piling on the
The
partials
partials.
because I figure they're going to equal a plenary or complete at some point.
He counts everything, Allison. But you know what? If you don't mind me jumping in saying this
Please.
on Divine Mercy Sunday, Allison, is the one time that all that stain, that temporal punishment is removed. On Divine Mercy Sunday, you go to mass, you go to confession through anytime during Lent, receive communion on Divine Mercy Sunday, and that temporal punishment is completely gone. So that's only once a year. And your soul is the way it was on the day it was baptized. And I,
Wow.
you remind me of the day by day in that book. So on Divine Mercy Sunday, go for it. I took years to get my family to take advantage of it. But I was at John Cantus is a famous church that does Latin Rite. And I asked Father on Divine Mercy, I go, how do you make sure you get everything in there, in confession? I don't want to miss anything. And it's in the day by day book. It was so profound. He said, when you get to the part, I'm sorry for these sins and all the other sins of my past life, especially for, and he said, add this, for the sins I'm too blind to see.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. That's powerful.
He said, that'll take care of everything. I say that quite a lot in confession.
I am too blind to see.
To see.
Oh, I'm adding that from this day forward. My spiritual directors be like, what? After 3 years, what are you talking about? I love that. I would be remiss if I didn't point out in this book, what I'm going to show right now.
Yes, definitely, indeed.
Look at my little squirrel friend, everybody. He's in there in different places.
Yes, indeed. It was purposely, consciously done as a nod to you, Allison. I love your squirrel attentions, your squirrel pals, and I was looking for something again. I wanted to add besides the Eternal Rest Prayer, and I told Joris, our illustrator, I said, Allison, the squirrel. I said, I want a cute squirrel, showing up all over. So that is directly a nod to you, Allison. Thank you for Mr. He's now Mr. Gingras.
I love it. I love Mr. Gingras. And the interesting connection to Mr. Gingras is the squirrel thing started because I had a very good friend named Lori Lynch. Lori Lynch recognized in me that I had a little ADHD and that I acted often like a squirrel, like I was bouncing all over the place. And she is the one who started the squirrel obsession with me. She started posting about squirrels and buying me little squirrels. Well, I lost Lori about 3 years ago. So she is now one of my holy souls that I pray
intercessors.
So that, yes, she's my very powerful intercessor, good friend. Her husband died, and less than 6 months later, she died of what I could only say was a broken heart. She was very young, and I miss her terribly, but it was seeing the squirrel in there in a book about holy souls, I have to tell you, brought me incredible comfort. And I feel like maybe Mr. Gingras in there, but he may also be a little nod to my friend Lori. So
he's throughout the book, and he's actually at the epic ending. We'll give you a clue. The epic ending is there's a happy ending. It's paradise, and he's in there too. I don't know if you saw him, but he shows up throughout the book. But so people know what's the story about. It's about twins, Ben and Hope, and everything that I named, the church, the dog, the children have a meaning. It was pointing to God's merciful love. Ben is the favorite son of Jacob. Hope is the virtue of hope. Bosco, the dog Bosco, is named after St. John Bosco. The church is St. Gertrude. And throughout the book, I don't know if you noticed, Allison, the parents, the mom. Now, I have to tell you this. I was working with my editor, and I said, "Well, what do we name the mom?" I'm new at this, and she said, "Mom." I'm like, "Oh, okay." That's what you name Mom and Dad. I'm like, "Okay."
Yes,
so
yes, perfect.
Mom was pregnant, and we have her throughout the book. Growing all the way up to the 9 months, because it starts in spring and it ends on All Souls Day, and she gives birth to a little boy, baby Nicholas, named after St. Nicholas of Tolentino. So everything has a connection. It wasn't done arbitrarily. But the Ben and Hope become prayer pals with Mr. Ray. That you've heard the word pew buddies. They see him on Sunday. They learn about his wife who had died, and they join in with him and become prayer pals to help Gloria reach heaven. Now, like you said, there's going to be questions. So what if the child says, well, what if he's in heaven? That grown-up page has those answers. So you're going to be prepared. I purposely did that so they understand purgatory as well. And we can answer that. If the soul's already in heaven, people say that soul will get, another soul will get the grace. And it's bigger than that, Allison. I talk about this on EWTN all the time. St. Thomas Aquinas calls it accidental glory. If a soul is already in heaven and you're praying for that soul, that soul gets two things. It gets an increase in its intimacy with God, and it gets an increase in its intercessory power, which is in the catechism number
Wow.
958, which says you never stop praying for your dead. And so
Ever.
we explain that. Also, I want to say that, people might think, well, this is too scary for children. Well, that's why I told a story, number one. And if you think about the children of Fatima, what did Our Lady show them? They saw hell. Well, we look at Jesus on the cross. However, this book, I made it a point consciously to make sure that we take the fear out of
Mm.
purgatory and replace it with God's merciful love. So it's there. It's not scary. It puts a smile on the children's face. It puts a smile on the parents' face. And I hope, listen, I wanted to ask you, well, what did you like it? Did it put a smile on your face?
Yes. It was very gentle. I loved
Yeah.
how gentle it was. I loved how real it felt. Like I could see my children having their pew pal, their prayer pal. I could see their story unfolding just like this. These children, the twins, and losing someone at church that you loved and that you knew, and how do you give them the comfort that we have this hope in our faith? And I think that being willing to talk about that lessens the fear that comes with death and dying. Like, what do we say? Like, two things are certain in this life: death and taxes. Like, we really don't have any other assurances but what God gives us, and the hope of heaven. And that even you don't need to be perfect, because even in his generosity, right, he gives us the generosity of purgatory. Of course, we don't aim for purgatory. Saint Therese tells us, aim
Very
for
good.
heaven, aim for heaven. But it's good to know that if I miss, I am still beloved, and I
There's a
hope
layover.
a layover. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I just flew. I totally get that. And that I can pray. I'm so glad you talked about never giving up praying for your dead. Saint Monica said that to Augustine, like, please continue to pray for me. Like, what do you want, Mom? I want you to pray for me. And
Masses,
also,
masses, masses.
I also loved how your story helps the misconception that we become angels. And I don't, like, when somebody dies, I don't try to like hurt their feelings by saying, I'm sorry, your loved one is not an angel. They're actually got this beautiful other thing. Like, those are two different species. Like, they're angels. We are not human, and humans are not angels, and we don't die to become them. We're given another role, a beautiful role in heaven, an intercessory role. We become saints, and to pray and hope for your loved one become a saint, I think is beautiful, and that we should continue to pray for them. Because I'm telling you, I got one quick intercessory story, and then I'll let you wrap up with the book. But just a story about how our loved ones become intercessors. So a couple Christmases ago, actually 2015, right, I was meeting you. We were having a really bad time financially. I had been sent a check for work I had done, but they sent it to my ministry and not to me. So I went to my bank. It was a couple days before Christmas. I needed presents for my kids. The bank wouldn't cash it. Even though I begged and pleaded, had been there for 30 years as a client, nobody would cash it. So I left to go to adoration, left a message for the bank manager explaining the whole thing, went to adoration. I prayed for the souls of all my grandmothers and great grandmothers. I prayed for all of them. And then I said, all right, holy ladies, I've prayed for you. Here's what I need. I said, I need that check cashed. I get in the car. I'm not even 2 seconds down the road, and the phone rings from the bank. It is the manager, and he apologizes for the way I was treated. He said, if you come right now, I will cash that check for you. So this is the power of our intercessors.
Yes.
You pray
They,
first for them, and then you're not going to get everything. They're not like it's not like you put in your prayers, pull the lucky lever, and get jackpot. But when God tells you, you get what you need, ask, you will
exactly.
receive. Like, I get so excited. I get almost more excited than you do,
They,
Susan. I don't know if
they're,
that's possible.
it's, it's catchy. They're very powerful. The one thing they could do in purgatory, they can pray while they're in purgatory. That's the one thing they can do. They intercede. The guardian angel tells them who's praying for them. And you know who they pray for, who they intercede for first, Ellison, because I've done a lot of research. They
Yeah.
go to the family members. They're concerned about the family, about their souls. They want to be sure that you can avoid this purgatory. Padre Pio, Mother
Wow.
Teresa, Gertrude the Great, Saint Faustina, who appeared to them? What souls? The souls of their orders, because they had a relationship. That bond is never broken. So they're extremely powerful. And we let the children know in the book that their prayers and sacrifices have an impact that beyond what they can imagine. Because in the story, two things I want to comment about. You talk about how do you explain what they're suffering and what they're going through. We have a beautiful 2-page spread. In fact, I'm going to show it to you. It's one of my favorites, Allison. It's how we introduce purgatory. Look at the artwork, Allison. It's
That's so,
breathtaking.
it is
They're
breathtaking.
they're prayer pails, so the souls are praying for the intercessors. These are the prayer pails, and these are the souls. They're not scary. They're people in prayer, and so it's an exchange of prayers. And so Hope talks about it because you have to bring it down to the child's level. What are they doing? They're getting ready to see God, and she calls it holy soap. So all this kind of language is in there. And then of course I wanted to say, so Mr. Ray dies, and so the kids are prepared because they were praying for the white Gloria, and they jump in and they sacrifice and they offer their prayers, their rosaries, and that's all in there. And then there is the happy ending, and that's where Mr. Gingras is also there. Is where do you end up? What Bennett and Alice, I just want to say, I worked with professors and theologians for the scene. I mean, we could, what do you say? I mean, share the page, because people will wonder. It ends up in a happy, at the end, what? Paradise. Yeah. Everybody's back together. It's a reunion. And the professor of eschatology at Bournemouth Seminary told me, put the kids in their regular clothes, because children are going to see this. And my goal was, if they see this, I want them to say, I want to be there. And so we answered questions about, and we'll show Paradise. People need to see what that looks like. Look at this, Allison.
So for those listening and not looking, I just want to kind of explain these 2 pages just really quickly. The purgatory page has the people who are in purgatory in prayer, looking very peaceful, but in kind of a purplish gray hue. And then those praying for them are on the outside, and they're in the full color. And then Paradise. Pals. And as you can imagine, the Paradise page has just these imageries, this beautiful, you have the sky and the background, like just paradise, what you might expect
you have children
what Eden to look like.
Yes, you have the saints singing and cheering on, because what happens, Mr. Ray and Gloria come back together. We all come back together. The kids will want to know, am I going to have fun? Well, we have children playing soccer. We have a child flying a kite. We have children playing with Jesus, ring around the rosy. They want to know, cute. Is there food? There's a picnic in the corner, under a tree. They're going to know, is my pet going to be there? Yes, we have one of the dogs that are there. So we answer all these things in addition to theological things that can listen to on Father Looney's podcast, because the professor came on and we did a joint conversation about how I looked at it and the theological explanation. You don't explain that to kids, but at least you'll understand it wasn't a playground, and it wasn't just a fun scene or a safari scene that we did. It was purposely looked at theologically. And so I tested it. I don't know if Jeanette Bankovic has a daughter. She has 8 children, and I showed her the Paradise scene, and Maximus was there because she just had surgery, and her son came in and he said, "What's that, Mom?" And she said, "That's Paradise." And you know what he said, Allison? We hadn't even finished we were just finishing the book. He said, "If that's Paradise, I want to go there." Wow. And I knew we accomplished it, Allison. We accomplished it for the children. So it's every child should have this. It's the only book done on purgatory for children. It's never been done before.
And who better to do it but the Purgatory Lady? And you and I could talk about this subject all day long, but unfortunately we've come to the end of our time together. Please tell us how we can get a copy. And of course, everybody, I will have all the links that Susan has mentioned in the podcast in the show notes. But how can they get a copy?
I really recommend, because you're going to get a discount, is go to EWTNRC.com. It's a special edition that I did, and they have it, and it's less. It's a lot less than what other places do. Or go to your bookstore. So I like to support. I
Me
like to
too.
evangelize and support all the apostolates in our faith. And EWTN, was one of the best to go to. So I highly recommend them.
I will put that link in there, and just a little note about your bookstore. If you're looking for it, then somebody else will be blessed by it. So if they don't carry it, let them know about it so they can add it to their bookstore so other people can be blessed by this book. Never feel afraid to go to a bookstore if you don't see it and ask for it. And it doesn't
Exactly.
always just have to be a Catholic or a Christian bookstore. You can also tell your
It's at Barnes and
local.
Noble. It's at Walmart, Allison.
Love
It's in
it.
Africa. It's in England. It's all over the world, actually. And
Love
it's
it.
great for the November. It's great
Yep.
all year long if there's a loss, and it's great for a Christmas gift. You're gonna love the images are breathtaking. Three card bishops: Bishop Hine of Madison, Bishop Conley of Nebraska, Bishop Perry. They said the illustrations were brilliant, breathtaking, and they are. And I'm just so glad that we finally have it, and your godchild has arrived, Allison.
Let's just give a shout out to the illustrator. I'm going to have you say his name because I know you'll say it correctly.
Yes, God bless Yoris Handoko. If anybody is in the business of doing a children's book or artwork, he's phenomenal. Father Wade Menezes from EWTN was working with me, and he said this man was chosen by God to do this book. In fact, so much that the World Apostolate of Fatima, the National Shrine, they hired him for another children's book. So
Wow.
definitely, look him up if you need him. He's in Jakarta, Indonesia. Well, I learned about WhatsApp real quick. And I learned about being on the next day with him for like 6 months. So, but he was very holy Catholic family, and definitely inspired. And I asked Yours, what's your favorite scene? He goes, a paradise, of course, Susan.
Of course. I love it. Susan Tassone, thank you so much for
Thank
spending
you
this
so
time
much,
with us.
Allison.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
this gift to our children of new friends now and forever, a story about the holy souls. And you can get that, as you said, from your local bookstore or EWTN. I'll have all the links. Susan, thank you so much for your time
Souls
today.
forever, Allison.
Amen. God bless
God
everybody.
bless you. Thank you.
You've been listening to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras.